this foreclosure scandal. How about fraud closures?
The fraud closures probably will be the biggest scandal of the last 4 or 5 years, when the full totality of it is dragged from the shadows, out from under the rocks, into the light of day, if we can do it. And it looks like there are people who are ready, willing, and able to do that. This is a massive crime and criminal endeavor. It's not just incompetent fraud.
Now, you've been around a long time, and you know how this works. Yeah, it may appear like that now. But what happens when something else takes our mind away from the news?
Oh, misdirection.
How many now, all of a sudden, you know, Obama is back to Bush 2004.
Right.
I haven't heard more terror alerts since, you know, Bush was in office.
Yeah. Well, that's how they do it. They scare the sheep and they drive them one direction, then they drive them another. They'll do whatever it takes. So, yeah, we could see a false flag op any day now.
Oh,
and
any day.
All of a sudden the foreclosure scandal goes away. Gone.
The crash of 2010 that we predicted, we never said, we said it would be some type of financial crash. People are mistaking because it's in our Trends Journal. We never said a stock market crash. We said some type of financial crash. The dollar is crashing. How much more proof do people need? There's a currency war going on. Those aren't my words. Those are the words of the finance minister of Brazil.
Wow.
They're devaluing the dollar. They're devaluing the yuan. They're trying to devalue the yen. It's a devaluation game. They're devaluing all the world currencies so they can help their exporters sell more junk to other countries. In the meantime, everything that we buy, as apparent with today's inflation numbers, costs us more. But what do they care about us? Because when you have people like Rabini, like Buffett, like Munger, making fun of people that are trying to take proactive measures to save their future by investing in precious metals, they have no idea what we're going through, what we live in our lives. Look, let's suppose that one of these billionaires, you know, they lose 90% of what they have.
Right.
Oh, they're only left with $100 million.
Damn, tough times.
So there's a total disconnect.
It's true. I don't know how we bridge that kind of a chasm either.
Oh, I do. You're going to start seeing it happening. And just look what's going on in Europe, particularly with the French.
Well, they got 3.5 million people in the streets, was it?
Yep, and now the students are taking to the streets.
Yeah, well,
and Americans say, "Oh, look at these French. You know, they want to they can retire at 60 years old, and they're complaining that they have to work to 62." Yeah, you know why? Because the French know the score. They know that even what they're getting, there's a lot of rich people that are ripping off the system because they're members of the club. And they don't like getting robbed blind and paying for it. So give us our share. So if you want to know a good business to get into that you're going to see a strong demand for, watch what's going on in Europe. It may be the guillotine business.
Interesting. I'd say there's an open market for it. Americans aren't out in the streets, 3.5 million of them. Not even 350. I don't see anybody out in the streets. All right, hold on. We'll be right back with Gerald in just a minute. Okay, and we're back. Gerald Celente. We were just talking about what's happening in France, and much to the shame of Americans, nothing is happening over here. By the way, this protest, 3.5 million people hit the streets. 3.5 million. What do we see over here? Nothing. And by the way, this is the fourth similar protest in France in a month. It's not a one-shot deal. They're serious about this. And as you heard Gerald say, all it is to push the retirement age from 60 to 62. But here's how the government is reacting. Oh, and by the way, the young in the streets are chanting some pretty interesting things like, "Sarko, you're screwed." That's what they're saying. But according to one report, Sarkozy is clearly nervous about the student threat in any case. His Prime Minister, François Fillon, slammed left-wingers for bringing kids of 15 years of age onto the streets. How dare they? While the chief social advisor, Raymond Sobi, said, this is a quote now, secondary school pupils and students should demonstrate to defend the reforms, as it is above all for them, because without it, they would be condemned to pay twice for their own pensions and that of their parents. So gosh, Gerald, they've got it all backwards.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, you could send young kids to go die in
it's okay to do that, huh?
Wars.
That's right.
But don't let them go out in the streets and protest.
No.
And by the way, Jeff, that's one of the reasons why you don't see a lot of protests here. Look what happens every time there's one. From the Battle of Seattle back in the late 1990s to protest the world governments and globalization, to the latest one in Pittsburgh about a year ago, where you had enough police and military with body armor that they could have walked through the Battle of the Bulge unscathed, beating up co-eds.
Yeah.
It kind of tempers people to go out into the streets.
It does. I agree. And then they have the fenced-off free speech areas.
Oh, isn't that great?
This
free speech.
America, the land of the free and the home of the brave.
I know.
Yeah.
Oh, last night I turned on for I couldn't take more than 5. Those are 2 insipid politicians from Delaware are doing the debate. Did you see any of that?
No, I don't have TV.
It reminded me of suffering through a high school debate, Yonkers, New York.
Well, you've made that case many, many times that these are the high school student body president
perfect.
types.
You could not deny it. It was perfect. These were 2 of the suck-ups, insipid.
Yeah.
Oh, just a goody two-shoes. Will do anything to get to the top. They were pathetic. But more pathetic than that was when I turned on the TV, and I have to watch this stuff in the morning to hear these anchors. I don't want to use the word. That sounds like anchors. That begins with a W.
Yeah.
But analyzing the debate.
That's almost
How about,
thrilling.
analyzing what Mickey Mouse said to Donald Duck and Goofy said to Minnie.
Perfect. Yep. Just about as good as the debates themselves, I'm sure. So between the 2 of them, if you had to vote, if someone put a gun to your head and said, vote, Celente, which one would you vote for? I say go for the ditzy airhead. We might as well go all the way, right?
I won't do it. I will no longer.
No, I'm being facetious.
I will not vote.
No
for
lesser of 2 evils. No, I understand that.
Yeah.
But what are they?
I hear what you're saying, but I wouldn't go to the polls. If they put a gun to my head, I'll do anything.
Yeah.
I want to make that really clear.
Especially if it's loaded.
I'm not going to die for a cause here.
No.
Yeah.
All right. Well, anyway, I did see a clip of it, but I couldn't even watch the clip.
No, it's kids stuff.
Yeah. It's worse than that. The common denominator is so damn low now that they are that you're right. It is kids stuff. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
This is all geared to the 10 to 15-year-old maturity factor at best, maybe even less than that. It's so rudimentary and elementary as to be obscene. Our parents, if they were around watching this stuff, our grandparents wouldn't believe it.
No.
They'd say this has got to be some kind of a joke of a situation comedy, and not even a good one.
My father, may his soul rest in peace, he would have said to me, "What are you watching this stupid junk for?"
Well, he's right.
Yeah, no, he taught me as a young boy to think for myself. And I look at this stuff. My God, how could any self-respecting adult think that these people know more than they do? How could anybody, anyone, have so low an opinion of themselves that they would have to look up to an Obama, a Clinton, a Bush, a Gates, a Petraeus, any of them?
No,
how could anybody be so discontent with their lives, be so unfulfilled that they would think that a Reid or a Pelosi or a Frank or a Dodd or a Bonner would know more than they do.
Yeah, I don't know. I get to the point where it just becomes so mind-boggling, and I know what's coming up, and I know the younger generations have far less on the ball. Each successive generation is just algorithmically getting dumber. So in another generation or two, they'll have it. People aren't to think. They're not teaching thought. They're not teaching initiative. They're teaching reaction. Just react to this stimuli or that stimuli.
Listen, I hated every day of school. I ran away from kindergarten at 4.5 years old.
I don't blame you.
You know, then I crossed the Boston Post Road in the Bronx, when that was the major artery between New York and Boston.
Did you really?
Oh, yes. No, so help me God, yeah. Yeah, it was the second day there, you know. I was the youngest of 5 at the time, and, you know, I was...
Beyond bored already.
Yeah, oh, no, it was, you know, they told me it was time to take a nap. I'll never forget. I knew when it was time to take a nap, and that wasn't it. I was napping every day. Yeah, I loved to nap, but it wasn't then. And the second day, I couldn't stand it, and I ran away. And I never went to kindergarten. And then, of course, when I did go to school, I got left back in the 5th grade. You know, the whole thing. You know, I barely got out of high school. I hated every day of school.
Yeah.
And it wasn't as though I was bored. They were speaking a foreign language to me. You know, it could have been Esperanto. And the school system, by any measurement, is as great a failure as is the military in this country. I'm sick and tired of people telling me I have to look up to the military. If you put all their brains together, they can't beat a bunch of guys with no shoes on in a country called Afghanistan that have light weapons.
And they've been at it for 10 years.
Yeah, and they still can't find Osama bin Laden. So it's dumb across the board.
Yeah, it's beyond dumb. It's tragic. We've killed at least 2 million people there. It's a holocaust of death. We've got, I don't know how many tens of thousands of, these brain injuries these people are vegetables.
What they're doing.
And they send them home on a couple dozen different medications. Their brains are scrambled. They've seen horrors they'll never be able to mitigate in their lives. They are literally ruined.